Chapter 3, Section 3.5, and this is a combination also of Section 12.2. They go very well together, so we've pulled them into the same lesson. Our objective, learn to find slope from a table and an equation. Essential question, how do I write an equation from a word problem? Our key vocabulary, rise, run, and slope. Slope of a line. This is really our first experience with slope. We'll come back to this again in 7th grade here, but we'll also see this a lot next year in 8th grade algebra. The rise is the difference of the y values. So the rise is what we're talking about, going up or going down from one point to another. The run is the difference between the x values, which would be going left or right. The slope of a line is the ratio of the rise to run for any 2 points on the line. Think of it as looking at the steepness of stairs, how tall the stair is and how wide the stair is. So slope is more commonly known as rise over run, the change in y over the change in x. We need to keep it in this order so that we always have a system, so we know that we're always talking about the y values in the numerator and the x values in the denominator. If you look at the picture, you can see this has a slope of 3 over 2 because every time we're going to a new point, we rise 3 and we run across 2. Let's see if we can figure out the slope of this line. First, you have to find points that you know their locations, so no fractions, no decimals if we can avoid it. So we see the point 1, 2 and the point 5, 4. We want to measure the rise over run. We can start with either point, and we start by moving up or down and then left or right. So it's the opposite of what we do when we graph the points. So we want to start by looking at how far we have to rise. So if I start at 1, 2, I rise 1, 2 spots. Then if I look at the run, I need to run across 1, 2, 3, 4. So I had a rise of 2 and a run of 4. Going up is positive, so that would be a positive 2. Going to the right is positive, just like when we first talked about graphing. So my slope would be positive 2 over 4, which reduces to 1 over 2. Since it reduces to 1 over 2, let me see what that looks like. If I were to rise 1 and run across 2, I should find another point on my intersection line, and I do. Let's take a look at the word problem. The table shows the total cost of gas per gallon. Use the data to make a graph. Find the slope of the line and explain what it shows. We already have our ordered pairs, 0, 0, 3, 6, and 6, 12. If we make a graph and label it with the cost of gas being our title, cost is on the left-hand side, which is the y-axis, gallons would be the x-axis. They're counting every other space by 3, so we're kind of counting by 1.5, but because everything's a multiple of 3, it's going to turn out nicely. So the lines and the dots have already been graphed for us, so we see 0, 0 is our corner, 3, 6 would be over 3 up 6, and then 6, 12 over 6 up to 12. So we want to find the slope of the line. Well, we have 2 points. We actually have 3 points we could work with, and we only need to use 2 of them. So if I start by looking at 0, 0, to get to 3, 6, I need to rise first, 1, 2, 3, 4, positive because I went up, and then 1, 2 to the right, positive 2 to the right. So I get positive 4 over 2, which is the same as 2 over 1. All right, so what does that mean? Well, we rose 4, and that was in the cost category. So the 4 was referring to our cost. The 2 is referring to the number of gallons. So if this is representing our cost, $2, and 1 is representing our gallons, then it's going to cost $2 per gallon. Use the graph to make a table and write an equation. Okay, well now we already have the graph, so we need to find some ordered pairs. So look for some intersections. I see one there, I see one here, at the top, right there. And notice I'm not choosing ones that are halfway between because I don't know exactly where they're located. There, I have quite a few points. So some of these would be ones that I highlighted, and others maybe not. 0, 1 was the first one, 1, 3 was the second one, 2, 5 was the third one. I didn't have 3, 7 because I didn't see it on the graph, but that doesn't mean that it's not a point in their table. From here, we need to write an equation. Here's what that looks like. The first value would be the value that is our slope. The second value would be our y-intercept. So our y-intercept, let's start with that, is where it crosses the y-axis. So it crosses the y-axis when x is 0, y is 1. Then to find my slope, I could count, or I could look at the pattern in the table. If I look at the pattern in the table, when my x's are going up by 1s each, my y's are going up by 2 each, so my ratio of y to x is 2 over 1 again. If I look at the graph, I can go up 2 over 1, so my slope is 2 over 1, or 2. Let's try again. Use the table to make a graph and to write an equation. Let's see if we can do the equation first. So right now, we have x equals 0, y equals -1. That's our y-intercept. And let's look at the difference in our tables. Our y going up 1, up 1, up 1. Our x's are going up 1 every time as well. So our pattern is 1 over 1, or 1x. Let's look at the graph and see if that matches. Looking from one dot to the next, we rise 1, run 1, rise 1, run 1. So we have a slope of 1 over 1, and our equation is y equals 1x plus -1. Take a quick peek at another one, see if you can find the pattern. The y values are going up by 1, x values are going up by 1. So again, we have a slope of 1. This time, our y-intercept is at 3. It's where it crosses the x-axis, or the y-axis, excuse me. Use the graph to make a table and to write an equation. Should be pretty easy to see here our slope. Okay, we're jumping up and over, but now pay attention to our values. Even though we're going up 1 space, our values are going up by 2 and then over by 1. And if you look at it in a table format, we have a change of +2, +2, and +2, and then +1, +1, +1. So our slope is 2 over 1. Our y-intercept is where x equals 0, which is 2. Now I called these x and y, but if you notice more closely, they are t and d. It doesn't affect how we do anything if the variables change. This is more commonly how we're going to be finding the slope. We have an equation. Slope is represented by the letter m. Think about it as a ski slope. You have 2 slopes there. The variables that we work with are in ordered pairs, and they're always x and y. And so we have these little letters and numbers, x1, y1, x2, y2. The 1 and the 2 just mean the first point and the second point. They're not numbers we calculate with, they are simply placeholders. It'd be no different than having different letters there. So you'll want to get this formula written down, that m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's see what that looks like. So if we put this into action, we have m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can see these points have already been labeled. So we have x1 is -2, y1 is -3. x2 is 4, y2 is 6. Again, it's just the first point, and the second point. Okay? It doesn't really matter when we're calculating what order we put these numbers in, as long as we have the y values first and we start with the same point each time. Sometimes it's easier to think of this as a table. If these are my x and y values, because we're used to seeing tables, -2 would go here, opposite of -3. 4 would go as an x, 6 would go as a y. So what we're trying to do is find the difference. Well, from negative 3 to 6 is a difference of positive 9. From negative 2 to 4 is a difference of positive 6. So I predict that if we use this equation, we're going to get an answer of 9 over 6, which is the same as 3 over 2. Well, let's see what happens. If I substitute the numbers in where they belong, this is what it'll look like. So y2 was 6. y1 is negative 3. That's where the first part came from. x2 is 4. x1 is negative 2. And because it's subtraction, we then have to change this to adding the opposite. So we get an answer of 9 over 6, which reduces to 3 over 2. So I'm okay with you setting up the equation. I'm okay with you setting up the table. You're finding the same answer anyway. Let's finish up by making sure our notes are filled out completely. On the left-hand side, write questions that could be answered from the material in your notes. Review your notes, that's highlighting, underlining, crossing off, and complete the summary before class. The most important things from this lesson is understanding how to find the slope from a graph and how to find the slope from a table or two sets of ordered pairs put into a table.